We have fantasy football tight ends. Week 4 starts, sits, and waiver plays. Denver Broncos versus the New York Jets. Fant is a start, a slam dunk start. Might be the best tight end of the week for me. Herndon, although I have graded as a start in terms of computer projections, I'm just staying away from the Jets at this point. They scare me. Arizona versus Carolina. I don't like either tight end. I don't think the offensive systems use tight end this much. If they get in the end zone, it's a fluke. It's not something that you should project or think is going to happen. I stay away from them in all formats. Baltimore versus Washington. Andrews is a start. Boyle might also have some value for you if you like to play daily fantasy and ride that tight end for Baltimore. Logan Thomas for Washington is a start. McLaurin and Logan Thomas, they're getting all the targets basically for Washington. I think you can start them. Washington's going to be down. They're going to have to throw to people. Even Antonio Gibson could give you some juice at running back out of the backfield this week. Cleveland Browns versus Dallas Cowboys. Hooper's a sit. Keep an eye on Harrison Bryant over there in Cleveland. He's getting some red zone looks and everything. I think they're using Hooper as a decoy right now, and Bryant is getting some of these cheap snake touchdowns away from the primary tight end there. Schultz is actually graded as a start. I think Dallas's passing attack is just so strong. You could play him, although I think you can do better this week rather than play him. But I would say daily fantasy wise, go ahead. But off the bench, I think you can do better on the waiver wire this week. Indianapolis versus Chicago. Doyle, if he can play, I start him. Cox, you gotta Mo Alley Cox at this point. You gotta look at whether or not he's going to take over kind of the primary passing threat for Indianapolis. Could happen. I like his athleticism, so let's keep an eye out. Jimmy Graham, I have graded as a sit, although with Nick Foles there, I like him a lot more. I think you could take the risk, and I think he's one of these guys that I think is a better waiver pickup than Dalton Schultz. Jacksonville versus Cincinnati. Tyler Eifert, start. I'm sorry, Tyler Eifert is a sit this week. Sample, although I have graded as a start, he burned me last week, so I'm sitting him. Daily fantasy, if you really want to play a risky game, you can play him. I'm just staying away. Let's see here. We have the Chargers versus Tampa Bay. Henry, sit. Gronk, start. I'm sorry, Henry. I keep reading these incorrectly. Henry is a start for the Chargers. He's about the only thing outside of Austin Eckler that you can trust against this tough Tampa Bay defense. Gronk, I think he's playing more and more snaps. I think you can start him. Maybe this is the week he gets into the end zone there. Minnesota versus Houston. Rudolph is a sit. Fells is a sit. I don't like this matchup for either team. New Orleans versus Detroit. Jared Cook, questionable. Sit him. Hawkinson, I like him. Again, Detroit's going to be throwing the ball a lot this game. I like Hawkinson as a start. He's somebody you could pick up off of waivers and start this week as well for a lot of leagues. Pittsburgh versus Tennessee. This is a roll of the dice here. Ebron is graded as a start. Honestly, I stay away though personally because of the risk. I mean, we got to make sure this game is going to be played. I don't want to take this decision into Monday or Tuesday. Seattle versus Miami. Olsen is a sit, although Russell Wilson's doing some special things in the passing game. So if you're looking for a desperation guy that can get in the end zone, Olsen would be that guy for me. Gesicki is a sit for me. I don't like this matchup against Seattle. I think it's going to be more running back out of the backfield and receivers on the sides. New York versus the Rams. Ingram is a sit. Higbee is graded as a sit for me this week, and I'm just going to ride that. We'll see if last week was the exception or the rule. His poor performance against Buffalo. We'll get a lot more answers this week. Buffalo, speaking of, versus the Las Vegas Raiders. Knox, who is questionable, is a sit. Waller is a definite start for me. Don't worry about what happened with the Patriots. Not everybody can do to Waller what the Patriots did. I think Waller has a nice game this week. The Patriots versus the Chiefs. Speaking of the Patriots, Izzo is a sit. Kelsey is graded as a sit. Can you believe that? Screw it. I'm gonna move past that. I say he's a definite start this week. You can't sit Kelsey, so I'm overriding the computer projection on that one. Philadelphia versus San Francisco. Ertz is a start. Kittle is a start if he can go. If he can't go, then start Dwelly or whoever else. San Francisco tight end, regardless of who it is, will produce this week. Ertz I have graded actually as a computer sit, but Philadelphia has to pass to somebody. Goddard's out. Consolidation of targets. I think he can play Zach Ertz. And then lastly, Monday Night Football. Hayden Hurst is a sit for me, and Tanyan is a start. I think Tanyan is the real deal, especially if Adams is out. I think Aaron Rodgers distributes the ball a little bit more. Tanyan played well last week. I think you could start him, although I think it's a little bit of a risk, so maybe it's more of a daily fantasy thing. Let's move it on to defense and special let's go with some waiver streams, waiver plays, daily fantasy sleepers for tight end. Tanyan versus Atlanta, Hawkinson versus New Orleans, Ebron versus Tennessee. If you want to roll the dice there, Schultz versus Cleveland, and Richard Rodgers, the other tight end, if you really, really want to be desperate, you really want to scrape the bottom of the barrel in daily fantasy versus San Francisco. Let's move it on to defense.